What is going on, Animal Crossing fans? Blaze here with another exciting episode, discussion video here about Animal Crossing for the Nintendo Switch. So I hope you're ready to be blown away by some really cool ideas. I actually have this is part one of an ongoing series until Nintendo announces something or gives us something about Animal Crossing. I'm gonna try to make as many videos as I possibly can regarding new and interesting ideas. This part one is all about the intro to the game. It's all about the beginnings of you stepping off of the train, of you stepping out into your town for the first time, and what you'll experience when you do that. And then part two of this video will be in just a couple days, which I'll kind of touch on a couple things in part two, but I won't elaborate on them until part 2 goes live. So for this video, I'll be using Animal Crossing City Folk to try and express some of my points, and I hope that you enjoy them. I hope that you find some value in these videos. So let's go ahead and get to into Animal Crossing City Folk, and I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So we're gonna have to use our imaginations on this a little bit, because I know that we don't have a Nintendo Switch version. We don't have any specific way of doing things. This is just what I've been able to kind of get my hands on in the easiest fashion possible. So in this example, for the new Animal Crossing for the Nintendo Switch, and some of these ideas also, they might just be ideas that I would use if I were making the game. If I was in charge of Animal Crossing, these are the things that I would definitely do. You don't have to agree. It's okay to disagree. Debate is everything, and you can post your comments in the comment section below. I'd like to hear what you have to think. But so as every Animal Crossing game starts off, you usually get off of a train or a bus or a taxi cab or something along those lines. In this example, we're not going to be using any of those, actually. So I'm standing here at the bus stop in this game, and truth be told, I don't want to be at the bus stop, because in my example, you're not going to get off the bus. What you're going to get off of instead is the dock at the south side or east side or west side, or wherever the dock may be in your town. You're going to be getting off of the dock. So I'm going to run through this town real quick. It is actually 4th of July right now, so or not 4th of July. It's August 6th on a Sunday, so there's fireworks going on in my town right now. So just thought that was kind of a fun little touch. But either way, we're going to head over down to the lower part of town. In my ideal version of Animal Crossing, cliffs will be back also, so you'll have cliffs. But I'll elaborate on that a little bit more next week, or on part 2 of this ongoing series. Not so much next week, whenever I get that video up. But if we're at the bottom of the south end of the game here, this is the best way for me to give an example of where you're going to start the game. You'll start the game on the beach. I don't think this game has a dock, so I'm going to have to use my imagination, or I actually have to ask you to use your imagination as well. But let's just pretend there's a dock right here, and you get off the dock and you step up onto the map for the first time. You're greeted by a villager. Maybe not so much Tom Nook, maybe not so much Isabelle. Could be Isabelle, but you're greeted by a villager. Let's say it's this person. Who is this person? This is Wendy. So let's just say Wendy is one of the first few villagers that's in your town, and Wendy greets you, and she actually introduces you to Isabelle, because Isabelle is so slammed. She doesn't have time to really talk to every new person who comes into town. So you jump off the boat, you talk to your first villager, and they talk to you for the first time, and talk about how they like living in this town, but they really wish there was more going on. So this person in this town would actually be kind of a tour guide for your town. In this game, Wendy just moved in, so we'll have to ignore that for now. But so let's just say that Wendy takes it upon herself to greet you when you jump off the dock, and begins to take you around the town. So she shows you a couple of different things in town. She might take you all the way up this way, or maybe not be a tour guide, but she'll probably be following you around for the first 10-15 minutes of the game, until you at least stop by all of the once you stop by all of the major areas of your town. That's when she'll kind of go off on her own direction. But she wants to kind of give you some background information on everything that's going on, and the kinds of things that she would like to that she'd like to see in her own town, you know. So you're just kind of on vacation. You don't really have a direction. You're just kind of doing your own thing. The first thing that you do is you go over to maybe it's a shop like this, or maybe it's the museum. Um, there will be plenty of room for these items to be back in your main town rather than being on a main street. So I'd like to see that again. It doesn't have to be like that, but that'd be kind of cool, I think. But when you walk up to this area, you see a building that's kind of run down and abandoned. This one's not, but when you walk up to the building, it's run down and abandoned. And Wendy addresses you and says, "Hey, this used to be a shop. It was a shop that was here for a little while, and then the shop owner up and left us high and dry. We haven't really had a shop owner for a long time, and this building is abandoned. So, you know, our town definitely needs some help, and our mayor isn't around either, so we don't really have a whole lot of fun things to do. But we really could use a shop." Now, at this point, you'll have a choice. Anyone that you've spoken to up until this point, when you come across this shop, you have a choice of assigning that character to run the shop. If you don't want to put that person in the shop, you can come back to it later. But she'll say something like, "This place is run down because nobody runs it. Nobody runs the shop, so we don't have a shop in town." And you can say, "Well, why don't you do it?" And that would put Wendy inside the shop, and she would actually be the shop owner, rather than Tom Nook or rather than Timmy and Tommy. But she would run the shop, and she would keep it open during her own set of available hours. Maybe she'd be the best shop owner in town and keep it open 24 hours a day. But every single villager would have different stats regarding what they would do inside the shop, and I'll elaborate on that a little bit more later. But so once you look at the shop, you're able to go to a different area of the town. I'm gonna go over to. I want to try to find the museum, but I think it's on the other side. Oh, here it is right here. So once you run across the museum, the same kind of thing happens. Wendy stops you and says, "Hey, this is our museum. It's also a little bit run down and abandoned. No one's been the museum curator for a very long time, and we'd like to have some kind of structure or something. We really don't know what to do about it." So again, you have the option of assigning one of the villagers you've already met to run the museum, or you can pass for now. As you keep going, you'll come across all the different areas of town. Town Hall. This is Mabel and Sable's area. Of course, she'll talk about the fabric store and how there's no clothing store in town either, and everything's been abandoned, and it's been that way for a while. And you have the option of assigning someone to run this area as well. Of course, we have the Town Hall. She'll say the same thing. The Town Hall is another area that's been abandoned. The mayor left us, and we have Isabelle, who's trying to keep up on things, but she's overwhelmed and swamped right now and doesn't have time to really make any changes or any decisions. So we really could use help in that area. And then, of course, since these items are back in your town instead of on a main street, you'll be able to explore the other areas of the town, or the other areas of like the main hubs. Like, well, I guess that'd be it really to start off. That's really all you'd get. But anyway, so that'd be the first part of the game. So you're then introduced to Isabelle, and Isabelle says the same thing, that she's overwhelmed, she's swamped, she has no idea what to do. She wants to catch up on some paperwork, and she sends you off to introduce yourself to all the villagers that are in your town. So you run around, you talk to all the villagers that you haven't spoken to yet, and after you do that, you come back to Isabelle, and Isabelle says, "Did you have a chance to meet everybody? Blah, blah, blah. Everybody here is really great, and they love living here, but they'd all like to see some changes, and they'd all like to feel as though they're contributing to the town as well." So this is where you really get to choose, and maybe you didn't have the option before, but this is where you really get to choose who runs what. So at this time, you'll Isabelle may say something like, "Nobody runs our shop, our local shop. Nobody runs our museum." And you can say things like, "Well, why don't you do it? Or not you, but why doesn't Wendy run the shop? Um, why doesn't Poncho run the museum? Why doesn't this person run that, or the other person run this? And you start assigning villagers different jobs that they can complete while they're in your town. Um, and I mentioned Isabelle a second ago, but it doesn't have to be Isabelle that you interact with. It could be anybody. In fact, there may not even be anybody in the town hall trying to run the show. It could also be abandoned with nobody there. So after talking to the person that you initially talked to, you might start assigning people just based on that. And start taking control of this little town that you just stepped into for the first time. And, you know, in a way, you're helping them get a little bit better organized by assigning them different places to work. And after you make that assignment, so let's say you assign Wendy to run the museum. Wendy might be the best person to run the museum in your town. Of course, every villager in the whole game would have different stats and different things that they'd like to do. So maybe Wendy's best profession is to be in Mabel and Sable's shop, and she would run that like it was her dream come true. She'd have it open, you know, 12, 15 hours a day, and during that time, you know, she'd have access to all of the things that you would want to use inside Mabel and Sable's shop. The sewing machine. She'd have access to custom designs and things like that. But if you assign that person who's really good at running, you know, this shop, the fabric store, I call it Mabel and the Able Sisters, but it's not really their shop right now. It's basically just a fabric store. So if she's not really good at running this area, she might be better suited for the store, or she might be better suited for the museum as a museum curator. So depending on what the character is, the character might actually have a much better time running a certain area. So parts of this idea actually came from a Tumblr post. I'm not sure if I thought of it first or if I read the post and then thought of it later. I don't remember. But the elaboration on this idea is that you're able to assign different villagers different shops. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're already thinking, Blaze, if I have Wendy running the Able Sisters, am I ever going to meet Mabel and Sable? Yes. The answer is yes. You actually will meet those people. So Timmy and Tommy, Tom Nook, Isabelle, Copper and Booker, all of those people can now actually be villagers inside your town. And while they're there, they can have their own house, they can have their own plot, they can have, you know, their own house, not unlike this one or this one. So when they move into your town, whether it's through an amiibo card or if it's through just happening to show up and being there, you can designate Copper and Booker to run your police station. And of course, there would be no better police officer than Copper or Booker. It would be the best possible person to put inside that police station. Now, the thought comes up of what happens if that villager wants to move out. Then what happens? Well, my answer to that is that while they're assigned to run something, to run a shop or to run a store of any kind, they will never try to move out. They'll always be in your town, because now they have a sense of purpose. Now they feel like they're contributing to your town, and they'll never ask to leave. So if you have a favorite villager, Blue Bear, Poncho come to mind. Those are two of my favorites. If I don't want them to ever move out, I would give them a job in my town so that they never have to move out. And whether that job is the museum curator, or whether it's the police officer, or whether it's the coffee shop, if I give them a job, they'll never decide to leave. So that's pretty much the gist of what I was thinking there. I love the idea of coming off of the boat, and I'll explain on part 2 why it's going to be a boat in my version of the game. And what I'm hoping Nintendo does, as far as making it a game that is better than Animal Crossing New Leaf, because New Leaf not perfect, but it's pretty darn close. And if you expand on some of the things that New Leaf brought to the table, you could make a pretty epic Animal Crossing game. So that's just the first idea that I wanted to bring to the table and bring up is that, you know, the town's abandoned. The townspeople don't really know what to do. They're not really good at making decisions, and of course they gossip about each other. They don't really know how to make those decisions and keep those decisions sticking. So what ends up happening is when you come off the boat, you make just a couple of decisions for the villagers. You tell one person to go ahead and run the store. You tell another person to go ahead and be the museum curator. Another person runs the fabric store. Another person becomes your mayor's assistant. And then things start to shape up. And on the next day, when you start the game for the next day, you're greeted by several of the villagers who say, hey, you've really helped us out a lot. We kind of want you to be our mayor. They give you a couple days to think it over, and if you decide you don't want to be the mayor of this town because you don't like the way it's laid out, because you don't like the way the map looks, you can say no and go to a different town. And you can do that as many times as you want to until you get a map that you're satisfied with. That actually would be really cool in order to get a decent map. I know plot resetting is a huge thing in Animal Crossing, and I, for one, am fortunate enough to have gotten a pretty good town on my on one of my towns on the first try. So plot resetting is not great. But then they ask you if you want to be the mayor. You can take a couple days to think about it, or you can answer right then and there. They basically give you a tent after you make a couple of decisions for free. They let you stay in the tent for free. And if you want to build a house there, you talk to the local store owner, who allows you to build a house or a tent or whatever it is. And then from there, you kind of go about your business. But one of the biggest things that I like about this idea is that every single villager will have a different set of skills that they can use. Maybe one of them is very organized, and running the museum is the best job for them. Maybe one of them is very customer friendly, so they know how to talk to customers, and they know how to talk to people. They're very outgoing, and maybe being a coffee shop worker is good for them. Some of the jock characters can be very authoritative, so being a police officer might be a good role for them. And then, of course, you know, there's so many ways and directions you can take this. And of course, if you have someone in the museum, and the museum's only open for like 4 hours a day, and it's during the hours of 11 and 2, 11 and 3, and that just doesn't work for you, then you can reassign who works where. You basically can fire that person and let somebody else run that museum for a while. Now, that actually gives you more interaction with Isabelle too, or whoever's in your mayor's office, because right now we don't really talk to Isabelle that much. But one thing I would love to see is, I would love to see Isabelle with her own house in your town. You can talk to her just like a regular villager, and you can bring her gifts, and you can send her letters, and you can do all kinds of things for her while she lives in your town. But she is just a regular villager. She also has the option to move out. However, if you assign her, you can assign her to work anywhere. You can tell her to work at the store, you can tell her to work at the museum, but obviously Isabelle would be much better suited to work as the mayor's assistant. So those are the kinds of things that I'd like to see. Of course, Isabelle would have the mayor's office open 24 hours a day. She would be the best, you know, mayor's assistant there'd ever be. She also would do something like she'd have time off. Like, she would actually be off, you know, for like maybe an hour a day, maybe 2 hours a day. So she wouldn't work there 24/7, but she'd actually, you know, the mayor's office would still close. And while those stores and those shops and everything are closed, you can interact with her like a regular villager. She'd be in her house, she'd be awake, maybe she'd be asleep, who knows. But you can still interact with her like a regular villager if she's not in the mayor's office. But anyway, that's really all I wanted to talk about, really, as far as the first part of the game of my idea and what I'd like to see happen in the next Animal Crossing for the Switch. I took an idea, I think I may have seen it on Tumblr, I don't know if someone else posted it before I had a chance to think it up, and I don't know if I thought it up and then saw it shortly after. Regardless of the case, the first part of that, where you get off the boat and everything's abandoned, um, that part of the idea may not have been mine. So if you're out there and you thought of this idea, I apologize, but I took that idea and elaborated on it a little bit because I think that there's some potential there to make the game, the storyline for the game, a little bit better. So anyway, that's all I have for you today, folks. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you like this idea, if you like anything I had to say, let me know. If you hated it, that's fine too. And what would you do instead? What kinds of things would you like to see in this game instead of what I talked about? There's obviously hundreds of different ideas that can go on out there, and I really hope Nintendo gets it together and announces something soon. So I'll try to make this an ongoing series and talk about some different ideas that I've seen around the web as time goes on. So keep that in mind. Also, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and check me out on twitch.tv/L3LAYZE for live streaming of Animal Crossing New Leaf every Sunday morning at 11:30. Also, don't forget to check out my Twitter page for updates on when I'm streaming and also when I'm posting new videos. So until next time, folks, I will catch you on the flippity flip.